And welcome to the PTZ, the Political Twilight Zone. I'm John Baldwin, and I'm here with...
I'm Morgan Brittany.
And this is our final podcast, as far as we know, before the election. And boy, it's been a long year, but as Kenny Loggins once said, this is it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing to me when I look at this election realistically, and my eyes are not deceiving me. I see the crowds for Donald Trump. I see the enthusiasm, even out here in California. You've got Beverly Hills having parades. You have Newport Beach with all the boats with the Trump flags on them. You see this massive groundswell of energy to reelect him. And then you look at Biden and Kamala Harris, who have, a handful of people that show up on their little circles to stand in. And it just boggles the mind that it could even be close.
I am very perplexed by the Biden-Harris campaign because they have to know from internal polling that this is not in the bag for them, yet they're not campaigning very aggressively. I know they're using COVID as an excuse not to do so. But even with that, I don't understand it. What do you make of it? Do you have any sense from that?
I don't know, because I just heard, actually just on the TV as I was coming in to talk to you, Nancy Pelosi was saying when Joe Biden wins on Tuesday, and he's going to win on Tuesday, and then she says something odd like, well, whenever all of the ballots get counted, he's going to win. What does that mean? I mean, it's craziness. And, living out here in Hollywood, about, I would say maybe 10 years ago, there was a book that came out that just swept society. It was called The Secret. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Okay. The Secret was one of these mind control things where if you think something is going to happen, it will. If you will it in your mind and you see it ahead of you. I think these people are literally thinking that that's what's going to happen. Joe Biden can sit in his basement. Kamala Harris can just not say anything or not do anything, and they think they're going to get elected anyway, just because they're going to will it to happen. I mean, how wrong can these people be? This is what I just can't wrap my head around the pollsters. I mean, Frank Luntz the other day said that if they're this wrong again, I'm going to be out of business. I mean, we're all going to be out of business if the pollsters are this wrong again. They've got to be wrong.
Oh, they are. I mean, Frank Luntz, about a week and a half ago, said that Trump is running the worst campaign he's ever seen. He said the exact same thing on the exact same day in 2016. So these people are just regurgitating things they've said before. But the point you made about Pelosi saying that Biden will win when all the votes are counted, all that is to me is her signal to the radical left base that the election, if Trump wins and it stands, the election will have been stolen from them because all the votes weren't counted. That's what they're conditioning their people to do. It's a signal.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right about that. But it's just such an odd thing for her to say. Right. It's almost like she's admitting that whatever the shortfall is for Biden, they'll just have to make it up, until they get those votes that are going to put him over the top. I mean, if you dissect it, that's what it sounds like, because they did that out here in California and they flipped House seats. 2 weeks later, they come up with the amount of ballots that they needed for the Democrat to win, when the Republican had already been, declared the winner. See, this is what I fear. And I mean, you start doubting everything because you doubt the post office. You don't know that people aren't working there that are going to intercept ballots and throw them out, and people never get them. My sister-in-law got 3 ballots to her address. 3. Wow. And I mean, this is crazy. I don't know how they can ever come up with a legitimate number that I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe that's their goal.
Any other Republican but Trump that would work against, but that I don't think it's going to stand if they try it. I hope I'm right about that.
I hope you are, because if he wins by a big margin, there's no way they can make that up. I mean, once they can get away with that, but I don't think you can do it this time.
Yeah.
I really don't. And today, what was it that I heard that the auto workers in was it Michigan just endorsed Trump? And
wow.
Who's Debbie Dingell? What state is she from? She's the representative from
I thought
Michigan
it was
or Minnesota, or I don't know.
One of the Rust Belt states, either Wisconsin or Michigan. Yeah.
Yeah, but she was all, flustered because she had gone out and talked to them, and they said nope, they were all voting for Trump, and it's worrying her.
Yeah. Well, they had good reason to be worried.
Yeah.
Well, and some things are definitely in the last week have helped Trump. We've got today, what was it? I don't remember the exact figure, something like 33% GDP.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you've got Amy Coney Barrett confirmed to the Supreme Court. So we've got sometimes a 6-3, definitely a 5-4 margin, because you never know sometimes how John Roberts is going to vote.
Right,
but
exactly.
I'm glad to see that she's in place. So if they do try to steal the election and it goes to the Supreme Court, hopefully they put the kibosh on it, like they did in 2000, which was just ridiculous. So
yeah, but
exactly.
Hopefully, we will prevail, and we'll have another 4 more years after that. That's a big question too.
Yeah, that's more concerns me more than what happens next week, because at some point the Democrats will run the show again, just by by the law of averages. And if they're still controlled by the radical leftists, then it's not going to be a pretty sight. One of the things that's interesting to me about this election, one of the great unknowns, is how the Hispanic and black vote is going to go. And I just was on Breitbart just a few minutes ago, and the latest Rasmussen poll, which came out today, shows that Trump has 31% of the black vote, of likely voters, going into this election. Now, that, I'm not even sure I believe that, but even if he only has half of that, which would be around 15 to 16%, that would be enough to win this thing going away. And that has to have the Democrats and the left in a complete panic state.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And when you listen to a lot of the African American Republicans that are out there, they're absolutely adamant that Trump is going to double his numbers from last time or even more. And in the Hispanic area, he's really moving up.
Right.
So I don't know that the Democrats believe it. I think they believe they own these groups, and they're never going to bail on them. They're never going to leave the Democrat plantation. But I'm not so sure.
Right.
I think Trump's done a really good job, and when you start seeing hardcore rappers and people like that are changing their minds.
Right.
Kind of interesting.
And it bodes optimism for the future of the Republican Party, because a lot of these the support that Trump's getting from both communities are from the younger generation. It's not the older folks that are supporting Trump. So if the Republicans, can maintain an outreach to that community, I mean, I think this opportunity's been there for over a decade or more. The Bush, McCain, Romney campaigns never bothered to try to reach out to the black community. And of course, I guess maybe they really didn't need to at that point because they had so much overwhelming support among the whites and the evangelicals that they didn't need to. But now Trump has really reached out to them, and I'm hoping Republicans that come after him will try to do the same thing. And I think you've got, of course, you got Kanye West, you got Ice Cube, 50 Cent.
Diamond and Silk, and there's even Leo Terrell. He completely flipped from being a hardcore Democrat to being a solid Trumper. He's out on the trail for him.
Wow.
But yeah, I completely agree with you. I think they're seeing a stark difference. And the good thing about Donald Trump is that he makes them feel like they matter.
Right.
Where the Democrats don't. The Democrats take them for granted. They just keep them where they are. They give them lip service, promise them everything, and then deliver nothing. Even Obama, who was supposed to be the savior, he did nothing for his own people. Nothing. And yet Donald Trump, he comes out and does something. He actually makes a difference and talks to these people, and he lets them know, I care about you, talk to me. I think that makes a huge difference because they have been ignored. They have been dismissed because, hey, the Democrats need them to be dedicated Democrat voters. They don't want them out of the position they're in. Why would they? They turn Republican when they get out.
Right, yeah. And we left out Candace Owen. I can't leave her out. Yeah, she was the one that really started this. And the arrogance of some of those on the left. I'm reading, this is from last week. You probably saw this on Breitbart. Chelsea Handler had some choice words for 50 Cent. Apparently that was her ex-boyfriend. And she said, quote, this is off Twitter, I had to remind him that he was a black person, so he can't vote for Donald Trump. If he denounces Trump, I might be willing to go for another spin, if you know what I'm talking about. Well, first of all, I didn't realize that 50 Cent and Chelsea Handler had ever been on Wheel of Fortune and spun that wheel before. I mean, that's what she's talking about, right?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, his response to that was kind of interesting because you can read between the lines on that one, where he was going, oh yeah, absolutely not. I am not voting for Donald Trump now. That is sarcasm.
Right.
It's total sarcasm. Because, I mean, it's ridiculous. And you're right. The arrogance of these people is just staggering. You can't even describe it.
Well, and just the bigotry there, because it goes along with what Biden said a couple of months ago. If you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Yeah,
and this is just the same thing. And these people talk about their white privilege, yet they are white privilege. They demonstrate it with tweets like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of, if you really think about what she said, it's very, very racist because she's basically saying, you know what, if you don't do what I tell you to do as a black man, then I'm going to withhold all these privileges from you. Mm. I mean, to say that to somebody, that's like holding it over his head that if you don't do this, I won't do this.
Right.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't even know anymore.
Well, it's the racism of Hollywood, of the leftist Hollywood. I got to say it that way, because not everybody in Hollywood's racist, but the radical left certainly is. And they pretty much control Hollywood now. I mean, how often do you see black people win awards in Hollywood? Very few and far between.
Yeah, and the thing about that is that now they have, you should see these emails I get from the unions and from the academy, and all these organizations are basically saying, well, now we have to change our policies, and we have to give awards and all of these benefits to the minorities. We have to do that now. It's like, what? And the black and the African Americans, the blacks in Hollywood, are saying, "What are you talking about? We want to earn. If we win an Academy Award, we want to earn it just like everybody else. Don't just give it to us because we're black."
Right.
I mean, it's and yet they are so condescending when you get these emails saying there are going to be policy changes, and we're going to bring in many more minorities because we feel that we need to do that for them. No, they earn it. They want to earn it.
Right.
And that's so condescending. I get those all the time, and it just makes me sick.
Wow. Well, okay, so on with their predictions here. Let's see, we need to, all right, the presidential race, we got the House. The House is up for grabs, and also the Senate. Let's start with the House. How do you see that playing out?
Boy, out here in California, we could flip about 3 House seats in Orange County. The ones that were stolen last time in the last midterm. They were so close, and it was the ballots that they found later and flipped those seats. Now the Republican Party's got a handle on that. Many people are aware of what's going on. Right now, these guys are ahead. The Republicans are ahead against their opponents. And their opponents seem to be very much like AOC. They're completely out of touch with that community. So we have a possibility of picking up some seats here. People out here are pretty disgusted with what's going on. They really are. I mean, Democrats as well. Maybe not hardcore leftists, but, average Democrats are pretty disgusted with Newsom and his rules and his lockdowns and his orders about what you can do for Christmas and Thanksgiving, and so they very well could flip some seats. I don't know about other states. How many seats do we need to win it back?
Right now, the Democrats have 232 to 197.
Okay, so we need a few. We need quite a few.
Yeah, 36 seats it looks like. Now there are 5 vacant seats too. My prediction is that we will gain some seats in the House, but I don't know if it'll be enough to flip it Republican. I would be pretty surprised if we did, because it's so many we have to flip. I'm not saying it's not doable. I mean, if Donald Trump has a tremendous night on election night, that's quite possible.
Yeah.
I would love to see it happen.
Do you think if we don't, and Pelosi continues to be Speaker, do you think she'll continue to be Speaker, or do you think she'll be replaced?
It depends. If she continues to be the puppet to the radical left and do what they tell her to do, yeah, they'll let her stay there. That's an interesting question. I think if they lose the House, definitely she's out, period. She'll never be the Speaker again. If they win, I don't know how would they oust her, because she could say,
well, the thing that I'm concerned about is that the leftists, the Marxist leftists that are, in the House, that are putting a lot of pressure on her for a lot of things. I'm just wondering if they're not just holding back right now, and if they win, they're going to just move in and change everything. I mean, it'll be just like a tsunami that they're going to go in and say, okay, everything's going to change now.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a fear I have, because I know a lot of these far leftist Marxists, they really want results, and they've been sitting on their hands because Bernie Sanders didn't become the nominee, and they've been promised everything, that once we get in here, you guys can take over. So I'm curious whether they would keep her or not put somebody younger, more radical in there.
I think you're right, and I think there's been a civil war going on in the background for the face of the party, particularly in the House, for 2 or 3 years now. Because at the beginning, remember Pelosi had a tiff with AOC back in the beginning. She kind of dismissed her, and then Pelosi did not want to go the impeachment route because she knew where it would lead, but yet she was forced to. So, who really has the power in that party? Is it Pelosi, or is it the people like AOC or Oman? We'll find out, I guess.
Well, that's my fear, is that they will go full radical on us.
Yeah.
And Nancy is expendable because she's old establishment. They're going to dismiss her. The squad, those women, they don't want her there.
Right.
I mean, so many of them don't want her there. And I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm helping a few candidates out that I can to try to win these seats. We got Joe Collins out here against Maxine Waters, which is an uphill battle. But if he could win that, oh my gosh, that would be amazing.
Right. Well, and the other side of that is if they lose the House, or even if they keep the House but Trump wins the presidency, how would the old guard, will they blame the radical leftists for not controlling all 3 branches of government and try to push back against them? I don't really see that happening, but it's a possibility. I think the Democratic Party is at warp speed towards radical leftism and socialism, and I'm not sure there's anything that can turn that around right now, regardless of the outcome next week.
Yeah, and for me, I just cannot, I cannot see this country, the people of this country, buying into that. Because so many people are immigrants from countries that they've run away from that. Yeah. Why would they want it?
See, that's where the Republicans have a real opportunity with that issue to start. And I think that's why the same article on Breitbart about the black support has Hispanic support for Trump up in the mid to upper 30s. So the media always figures that, particularly where Hispanics involved, that they vote in lockstep and as a group. And I don't think that's ever been the case. I mean, even George W. Bush got in the low 30s of support among Hispanics. So
right. That's exactly right. Because they have a lot of moral values that they identify with the Republicans. Right. And the Democrats are not offering any of that. They're not offering safety. They're not offering security. They're defund this, get rid of that.
Right.
Radical this and I don't see how that sets well with families and people who are looking out their window at open borders and MS-13 walking into their neighborhoods. I just don't see it.
Now on to the Senate. This time the Republicans are defending more seats than Democrats. I think it's like 23 seats that Republicans hold are up for grabs versus about 12 for Democrats, if I remember correctly. We currently hold a 53 to 47. I think there's one independent there. That might be Bernie Sanders, actually.
Yeah.
But we have a couple of seats that are being hotly contested. I think Susan Collins is in the fight of her life up in Maine, and mainly because of her support for Brett Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court, which I think was the right decision. But she did vote against Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah.
And I think that was a mistake. I think she should have stuck to her guns, because now anybody that was a conservative in Maine is going to be less likely to vote for her. She may have just shot herself in the foot.
Yeah, that's really true.
What do you make out of the fight that Lindsey Graham is in South Carolina?
I know a lot of people in South Carolina, and South Carolina, all the money that's being thrown, those people are pretty savvy to that. They're kind of like, you can't buy this. You can't buy this. I don't care how many millions you have. And that's just their attitude. And you find that a lot in the South. Don't try to buy my vote. Don't try to buy me. And Lindsey may be overreacting a little bit. I think he's pretty solid. I do. I mean, unless they pull some shenanigans or whatever. But a lot people like him a lot. And they really liked what he did with Kavanaugh. They really do.
That was a speech of his life, I think.
Yeah, it really was. And so many people that I know don't even live in South Carolina and send him money.
Yeah.
You know, so it's you know that the people that he represents have got to have said, wow, that I've never seen that out of him. Because a lot of times he says things that we go, oh, no.
Yeah.
But I think that if anything gets him reelected, that would be it, I think.
I think Lindsey Graham will squeak through.
Yeah.
I don't see him getting beat. And I think he was smart when Trump first came to power as president. I think Lindsey Graham bucked him some, but then by the middle of Trump terms, he realized that was a losing cause and decided to become an advocate for Trump, particularly where the judges were concerned. I just heard the other day that I think Rush mentioned that there are absolutely no outstanding lower court judges left to be confirmed. They've done. McConnell has done. I'll give him credit.
Wow.
He's done a splendid job of transforming the courts to be more, to have people who believe in the Constitution on them and won't legislate from the bench. And whether Trump wins or loses next week, this will be a legacy that will span out into the far future for maybe a generation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Even, despite everything that he had to fight against for these past 4 years, despite everything, and he still powered through and made peace deals with the Middle East, and he opened up, his hand to foreign leaders that hate us. I mean, you look at the things that he's done that never even got mentioned to half of this country that never listens to conservative views. I mean, he powered through. It's almost like I kept thinking, how does he do this every day when he hears the media and he hears these people and he hears this hatred and the lies that are told about him and the accusations that aren't true? How does he keep powering through? I think his attitude is, I've got a job to do. This means nothing. It's just noise over here. And I'm just going to do what I got to do quietly, and I'll get all this stuff done. And just like you said, he's going to leave a powerful legacy behind if he doesn't get elected on Tuesday.
Right.
And people will not appreciate that until the crumbling of this country with Democrats in power. And
Right.
That's what would happen. I mean, believe me, if Biden gets, well, here's my theory on that. If Biden wins, I guarantee you, I don't even give it 3 weeks, not even 3 weeks, that they will say, the doctors have said he's really not capable. And so he's going to step down and let Kamala take over.
Wow. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because they don't need Joe anymore. Once they drag him over the finish line, if they do, he's nothing to them. And they know that's why they're not going into this Hunter Biden thing, and they're avoiding it, and they're not doing anything, because they'll throw Biden and Hunter and all those people to anybody that wants them once they're done with him.
Oh, they would not be beyond, if Biden gets elected, to then bring up Hunter Biden and all that stuff and use that as the reason to replace Biden. I wouldn't.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, that's the way Hollywood, they eat their own. Right. I guarantee you, Biden better watch his back. He doesn't know because he doesn't really have I don't think he has the mental capacity to understand what they're doing to him. But his wife's got to know.
Yeah.
And they will drop him like a hot potato. If they drag him over the finish line and he gets inaugurated as president, I guarantee you they will be looking for how do we push him out the door. Get him out, get it over. I don't care what they do to him. Let them prosecute him. We don't care. We got what we wanted.
Right.
That's how I see the Democrats, because they don't really want him there. He's just a puppet that they need to con the people. That's it.
Yeah. Getting back to the Senate race out in Arizona, there's a tight race between Sally and Mark Kelly. In one of the debates, she has tried to tie Mark Kelly with a Chinese firm, and so that's having some effect out there, and has pulled the race very close. How do you see that one playing out?
Yeah, I think that she'll probably squeak out a win there. She just got an endorsement from someone powerful. The name escapes me, but I believe it was another military astronaut or the like. But yeah, I think she's up, and if Trump takes it, I think that the sweep will reelect her as well.
Yeah.
I think any ties to China at this point are pretty devastating to people. I really do. I think that there's a bad taste in everyone's mouth about China.
Yeah, particularly after Trump spent the whole year trying to tie the COVID outbreak to China. So yeah, there's not a lot of good feelings for that right now, I don't think.
Yeah, and if the polls are trending in Trump's favor, it's because he's been literally just pounding home the Bidens and their China connections, and you're going to be owned by China. He's beholden to them, blah, blah, blah. It's like over, China. So people are beginning to get it. I think that this, it's starting to trend in Trump's favor. People are very sour on that, and it could affect Mark Kelly in the Senate race.
Right. I'm looking at some of the other. You've got Ernst versus Greenfield in Iowa, and Ernst is ahead.
There's one in Georgia, right? Senate race in Georgia.
That would be, yes. Is that the?
Is that Kelly Loeffler?
Yes. Right now, it's showing Warnock by plus 19. I don't. Who is the current senator? Is it a Democrat or a Republican? I can't remember.
No, I think it's a Republican.
Okay. So it looks like that one could go to the Democrats. There's also, but it looks like we will regain the seat that we lost in Alabama, as Tuberville is 11 points ahead of Jones. It looks like the Republicans will probably lose a couple of seats. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being 51-49 or maybe 52-48, but I do think they will hold on to the Senate by the skin of their teeth, which is important for future Supreme Court judges.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And, if it would make it much more difficult for Donald Trump to get anything done if the Senate and the House are Democrat run. So he'd have to do a lot of executive orders.
Hey, Obama set that bar pretty low, so when if the Democrats start squawking about that, we can just point that out.
That's crazy. Hey, listen, I wanted to ask you, switching gears a bit, about this Joe Biden-Hunter Biden scandal.
Mm-hmm.
If, in fact, let's just hypothetically say that Biden pulls this thing out, and they do say, like right now, I guess Home Security is saying that these documents that this guy Bobulinski brought out seem to be authentic. Mm-hmm. They seem to be real. They seem to have backup. They seem to not be. They definitely are not Russian disinformation. If indeed this is true, and there was money changing hands in other countries for favor from Biden as the vice president, what do you think the Republicans? Do you think they would do anything about it?
Oh, that's a good question.
Think it would just fall by the wayside?
Unfortunately, I think it would fall by the wayside because the deep state would be so in charge of that any Republican that tried to go after that, well, we would never hear about it. They might have their life threatened. I really do.
Oh, I'm sure they would have. I can't believe that they haven't gone after Tucker Carlson yet. I mean, I really can't. But there's so many young guys, though. There's Matt Gaetz, and there's Jim Jordan, and there's they got great people in Congress that are going to get reelected. You don't think they'd fight and say, we can't have this? Or do you think that it just would be a moot point at that point?
Probably a moot point, and it also would put the Republicans between a rock and a hard place. If they go at it too hard, then the Democrats, like you said, may join them and oust Biden, and then you got Kamala Harris. So what do? Do you leave Joe Biden in there? Because
I don't think they have any choice. I think Joe Biden is going to be gone because he can't talk to leaders. How can he sit in a room with foreign leaders and do negotiations and run the country? He can't. I mean, he can't.
Right.
Everybody knows it. Even the Democrats, they all know it. So this is just, it's Weekend at Bernie's. Drag him across the finish line. But the thing that just upsets me is that all of these scandals would go away. All of this stuff that we've been waiting so long to hear an outcome, that people have got to pay the consequences for what they did. The spying, the lying, the corruption, the FBI, the CIA, the deep state, all of it's going to go away.
Yeah.
But where does that lead us then? And then if there is no consequence for Biden, who literally will be at the knees of China, doing whatever it is they want, how do we not fight back? How do we not do something? Because you know that. You know, if all of this stuff is true about Hunter Biden and all these countries that he's taken money from, you know that these countries want something in return. I think they wanted something in return from Hillary.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, that's where her money came from. All of that, and I guarantee you, she said, when I become president, I'll do this for you and this for you. It's not for us.
Right.
It's for them. But we will be, I don't even know what China would do at that point, because they would pull the strings of somebody they own.
Well, we have a past history to go on this type of issue, whereas the Republicans tried to go after Clinton on his scandals in the 90s, and they were, when you've got the media allied with the Democrats and the left, it would be difficult for the Republicans to make any inroads, because they would just be accused of being, right-wing conspiracy again. So, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no question. But why do you think, John, that all of these people they want to be involved with China so bad? The sports teams, the social media, all of these people want China. I don't get it. What is the connection? China is horrible. I mean, they're brutal to people. They murder people. They're, communists. They take everything from you. why is it that we have so many industries and high-powered people in government that are just in love with China?
Globalism and power. And
is it the New World Order thing?
yeah, I think so. And it's, yeah, the left has become the ideology of globalism. That's why they hate Trump's populist message of "Make America Great Again," because it disrupts their plans. I mean, they were on a road to globalism until Trump upended their plans in 2016. That's why they fought so hard to get rid of him by any method they can. I mean, like you mentioned, it's all kinds of industry. Look at the NBA. You got LeBron James, who had become the new Jesse Jackson / Al Sharpton, and he is a radical leftist. Yet there are a few people pointing out that the NBA profits off of China that has child labor and, like you said, murders people. So, but they don't care about this. This is an ideology that has aborted billions of babies in the last generation. So if China's killing people, what's the difference? I know that's very harsh to say, but what's the difference?
Well, you look at where that leads to, though. You look at there's people in concentration camps over there.
Mm-hmm.
If you disagree with the government of China, they come and take you in the middle of the night and use you for an organ donor. I mean, this is the kind of things they do. So what is to stop these crazy people that are in power in the deep state here in this country? If they can get away with this stuff, you think you and me and all your listeners and all of us who have been fighting for freedom, you don't think we'd be the first to go to be reprogrammed?
Oh, definitely.
We would be. Because I heard something the other day that just absolutely blew my mind, that they very calmly, some radical guy, he said, look, we have to unite this country. And Joe Biden and the Democrats are going to unite this country. And the question asked of this guy was, well, how do you plan on doing that? I mean, people are so polarized. And he said, no. We just have to reprogram the people who don't agree with us so that they do agree with us. Now, what does that mean? That means, and he says it's already in place, that they will agree with us, and we'll all get along because we'll all be after the same goal. Now, if that doesn't scare people, I don't know what does.
Well,
but you can see it, John, in Facebook. No. I don't like what that says. Therefore, I'm not going to allow it to be. I'm not going to allow it to go out on Facebook or Twitter. It's the New York Post. No. We don't like that. So silence it.
Right. And a lot of these people in the media and on the left don't realize that if this ever does happen, they're going to be the first ones to be gotten rid of. Look what happens now if one person even hints at a disagreement. I mean, look at what's a good example of that? I know that one. I don't know why this just pops into my mind. Martina Navratilova, who is a radical liberal, came out against guys being able to participate in women's sports, and she was silenced.
Yes.
So these people think that they have all this freedom to say whatever they want to, but they're going to realize that if these people ever really do take over, they're going to be silenced as well. And the light bulb may finally come on, but it'll be much too late at that point.
Well, circling back to the beginning of our show today, you said something about this being, all the elections are important. We always say this is the most important in our lifetime. But you got to think about all these things that are out there. And little by little, we can see it happening.
Yeah.
And it is an important election. People have got to get out and vote and take a friend with them that maybe has never voted. I mean, this is what we have to do, because I fear that their power with the media, with social media, they've infiltrated everything. And we're still standing. That shows the strength we have. Right. We're still standing. We're still fighting. And we have, thank goodness that Trump did get elected in 2016.
And there's something else I wanted to address too, and I planned to bring this up, but this would be a good segue. I know a lot of evangelical Christians were reluctant to vote for Trump in 2016 because of his behavior and his lifestyle, and I can understand that. But Trump has been in office 4 years, and I think if I was talking to a Christian that was still reluctant today, I would point to several things. First of all, he has brought, or is in the process of bringing, peace to the Middle East. He has gotten United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and now the Sudan to sign a peace treaty with Israel. Saudi Arabia is probably not far behind. In a brilliant move, Trump has gone around the Palestinians, which every intelligentsia thought that you had to go through them first, and Trump just proved them wrong. And I think that plays to the evangelical Christian. How can you look at that and not think this man deserves to be reelected? That's just my thinking on this. I don't mean to be putting anybody down, any Christians down that aren't going to vote for him, but if Trump has done more pro-Christian things than anybody I can think of since maybe Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, and he talks about God at his rallies, and he talks about Amy Coney Barrett, who he backed so strongly and got her in there. I mean, how can Christians look at that and say, I'm not going to vote for him? And you look at the alternative, Right. You can't. And the thing is, people have got to vote. They've got to get out and vote. Nobody can stay home. Right. They can't.
And like I said, Trump is no saint. He's had a lifestyle full of a lot of indiscretions and sin.
Oh, sure.
But so has everybody else. And, I hope this doesn't sound corny, but I'm reminded of King David. And a lot of people think, even Christians think of King David as being a great man and a great man after God's heart, which he was. But King David also had an affair with a woman and had her husband killed. So,
yeah. Well,
as far as I know, Trump's never had anybody killed yet.
No.
That would be the Clintons that did that, possibly. But so I would just ask folks to pray about that and think about that, because I do think that this push towards globalism also plays into biblical prophecy, because we know that when the end times come, that there is going to be a global economy. At least that seems to be what the Bible indicates. So I really believe, me personally, I'm not pushing this off anybody else, I believe that God has put Trump where he is right now to keep that from happening at this moment in time. And to try to keep, really, if you think about it, America is the only country on the earth right now that has not gone radical leftist. And we're really the only hope left. I hope that doesn't sound conceited, but you look at what other country is still out there that's doing what we do. England has pretty much been taken over by a socialist, or is in the process of it. France has been. So I don't know. What happens if the United States becomes socialist? I think the whole world will suffer.
Of course it will, because socialism doesn't work, and they make it sound so good, but many people will die.
Right.
And it's just unfortunate, because we have had the beacon that people come to, that run to when they have no hope in their own countries. Where are they going to run to if we're like that?
Right.
Where do you go? That's why I just have the feeling that the American people, they know. I I really think God gave us Donald Trump and put him in power because it's like, wake up, America.
Right.
Wake up. Look at what's coming. Look at what's happening. And people did. I mean, you look now at the people that are involved in politics and the people that are passionate about it. That was not like that before.
Right. I agree. And I do think that every president God has put in it for whatever reason, it does serve his purposes, even if we don't realize it. I think.
But it's something
Right.
we need to learn, right?
Right. I mean, without Obama's 8 years, we probably would not have gotten Trump.
Right. Right.
Because the contrast there before Obama, I think Bush was there for certain reasons. Because of 9/11, he was there to fight back against the terrorists. I think Ronald Reagan was in office. I mean, I think this country was heading at warp speed towards radical leftism and socialism in the late 70s, and Ronald Reagan came along and put a stop to that for a while.
That's right. And the Soviet Union.
Right.
Everything that he did. I know. You just brought something up about Donald Trump saying things, and didn't he say at the debate that that's the reason I'm in office is because of you and Obama?
Yes. Yes.
Didn't he say that?
True. That is true.
It was very, very good. I loved that line, and he said, that's the reason I'm here.
Yeah.
It's because of you two. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in office.
That's right. That is right. Well, let's make some predictions here. I tell you, the polls are all over the place, and I think they're making the same mistake they made 4 years ago. They're not catching the shy Trump voter. I think Rush brought out a couple weeks ago that even when they're polling Republicans they're polling suburban Republicans who tend to be more moderate. I think there's going to be a big surprise come election night. Now, I do think, well, let's put it this way, and I'm not going to go through I'm not going to crunch all the numbers because you can make people's eyes glass over with this. I believe that Trump will win at a minimum in the high 270s. And a maximum he could get, I think, how many did he have last time? Like 320 or something like that? I think that's possible like again.
That, yeah.
I think he wins Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas. He squeaks by in Arizona. He wins Iowa and Ohio. Ohio, I think he could win possibly by double digits. Then you come to the Rust Belts. I think he wins Wisconsin and Michigan by close margins. Mm-hmm. Pennsylvania, I have no clue. There are so many conflicting polls. You've got the possible voter fraud going on there. If Trump doesn't win Pennsylvania, I think he still wins like with the minimum that I talked about. If he does win it, then he'll be over 300 electoral votes. But the other very interesting thing that just came out today is that he's actually in play in Minnesota.
Yeah, right.
And if he wins. Well, he doesn't actually have to win Minnesota. If he comes close in Minnesota, I think the other Rust Belts will be safely in his corner. And it will be interesting to see I hope I pronounced this right, the Trafalgar group. They're the ones that were so accurate in 2016 or predicting Trump to win all those states I just said. And the CEO of that company said that one of their methodologies, and I think this is brilliant, is that they'll ask a person who they're voting for, but then they'll ask the person who they think their neighbor is voting for. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they get around the shy Trump voter, because even if somebody is reluctant to say that they're voting for Trump, they're more likely to admit that their neighbor is voting for Trump.
Right.
So anyway, I think Trump wins it possibly in a large margin with the Electoral College, but he may win individual states by very small margins like he did in 2016. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think that he's going to hold on to the voters that he had in 2016, and I think he's going to add to that. I think these people are going to look at their lives and say, I'm better off. Even with COVID, whatever, all that garbage, I don't think they're blaming him for that. And I think that he's going to grab more voters. He's going to grab more minorities. He's going to grab. He's going to get votes from places that the Democrats have no idea, because a lot of African American voters are not telling pollsters that they're voting for Trump.
Right.
They're really not, because they don't want to be canceled.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll make another prediction too, because I do think Trump will win, and after he does win, pandemonium is going to set in that's going to make 2000 look like a picnic. I hate to say that,
Yeah,
but
I know.
the left is not going to accept this at all, and they're going.
Yeah, I agree with you, because look, they're already. This is why I think that they know they're in trouble, because they got a master plan to start up trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they do that if they were so secure?
And I know a lot of cities are already preparing police forces to deal with rioting. I think there will be riots, and the irony of it is that most of the riots will take place in Democrat-run cities, like they have before. So I don't look forward to the aftermath of the election. I think Trump will ultimately prevail, no matter how long they try to drag it out with the mail-in votes or whatever. But the country is going to be plunged into the depths of hell from the left. Unfortunately, I hate to say that, but it's based on experience.
Yeah. Hey, I got a question. Just hit me. If it looks like he's going to win, he's still in office till January, right? Regardless.
Yes.
If everything breaks loose and there's just pandemonium everywhere, and martial law has to be, implemented, what happens at that point in January?
I don't know.
I don't know either, because when you declare martial law, you don't change administrations, right?
Well, that's a good point. And I think one of the objects of the Democrats, and I'll have to look further on this, because Rush talked about this, about if the Democrats keep dragging it out and there's not a clear winner, or they try to prevent it from being certified, then neither Trump or Pence can take office. That would put it down to Pelosi.
Right.
However, there was something, I have to go back and look it up. Scott Adams talked about this, the creator of Dilbert, talked about this about a month ago. And I think he was talking about it in conjunction, whereas if the Electoral College was tied and it went to the House of Representatives, that even though the Democrats have a majority, that doesn't necessarily mean that Biden would win, because it's not, the vote would not be based on the majority in the House. It's some other type of rule. And he didn't really explain it, and I haven't had a chance to look it up. So I don't know. That's food for thought. But yeah, the thought.
Yeah, it gives you a lot to think about, especially in 2020 when anything can happen.
Yeah, anything can happen. But and I hope I'm wrong on this, but if it does happen, folks, just don't panic, because God will be in control. And I think when it's all sorted out, Trump will still be in office, and he's going to have to. No matter what happens, I think he's just waiting until after the election. He's going to have to put down these riots, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. No question.
Can't keep having this happen. So, but it's been a long year. We're at the end of this journey. I do, no matter what happens, God is in control. If Biden wins, Republicans will be upset, and we'll probably eat a bucket of ice cream or something, but we're not going to go out and riot.
No, we're not. We're gonna take a step back, and we're gonna regroup.
Yeah. So we'll have a lot to talk about after the election, and then and going into Thanksgiving, maybe Christmas, maybe January, February, March. Who knows how long?
Who knows?
To sort all this
No
out.
telling.
But we've been in the twilight zone for a while, and we're probably going to continue to be there. So, and I want to, before we close, I do want to say, I've got to mention this, gentleman. If you want good analysis on election night, there is a gentleman has a YouTube channel called Red Eagle Politics, and I have watched several of his videos, and he is spot on with some of these polls and his analysis. And he's doing a live election night coverage on YouTube. So look that up, and don't pay attention to what these network people are until about 9 or 10 o'clock when it's obvious that Trump is winning. Then it's fun to turn it over and watch them, just their face crestfallen.
Right.
But
right. What is that again? It's Red Eagle?
Red Eagle Politics.
Politics. Okay.
And what amazing about this is the guy that runs it, he looks like he's about 20 years old. And so I'm like, how does he know all this stuff? But he has gone in and completely skewered Nate Silver. He calls him Nate Plastic. And all these polls, like the one that showed Biden up by 17 points the other day, he said that is ridiculous.
I know. I know, exactly.
So anyway, somebody's going to be wrong. I'm hoping, like who's the guy you said earlier that said if the polls are wrong, we'll have to quit? Frank Luntz.
Yeah, Frank Luntz.
That's like the Hollywood people promising to leave if Trump won or if Bush won. They're still here. So,
I know.
So anyway, well, this has been the Political Twilight Zone with John Baldwin
and Morgan Brittany.
We'll see you after the election, folks.
All right, get out there and vote.
Vote often and vote early. Just joking.